My study is at UC Santa Barbara. It's not photography, but fine art. But I think I like the immediacy of photography, and I also like the fact that photography is a kind of universal language. An Asian, as a Vietnamese living in America at that time, photography was pretty much the medium because it had no deep root in any culture. And of course we know the Vietnam War is one of the most photographed. And so then you see the problem in how Vietnam is primarily seen through this photograph. It lacked a kind of presence, it lacked a kind of physicality. It was always, this big. If you have money, it's this big. And it's just like, nowadays, this big is not that big anymore. And then I think at that time I was also looking at a lot of Dada collages that was really political. I was very impressed by the way they use images. They wasn't exactly photography, but the way they use images. All that, and then also the fact that I want to bring something of my own. And so I think that's how all of it kind of came together, and it gave birth to the photo weaving. The weaving allowed me that kind of conceptual idea of layering, take the images apart and insert other narratives in. From Vietnam to Hollywood series, for example, it's a layering of 3 different kind of type of images. Well, first of all, it was seen through the documentary images, the news images every day during the war. They only want victims. They only show Vietnamese as victims. And then after the war ended, then it's Hollywood representation of Vietnam. They don't care about the Vietnamese. We are not in the film, We're shadow in the jungle, we're prostitute. We're not real people. We don't say anything in those films. So for me, it was important to take these images apart and then trying to insert a different narrative in there. And that's where the vernacular photography, the family snapshots that I've been collecting. So when you look at the weaving from the image are always fighting with each other for dominancy. That was the first time I really started to really kind of physically manipulate the image to express my kind of dissatisfaction with photography in a way. When the war in Iraq took place, and all the information kind of coming out, the TV, the newspaper, it's sort of bring me back to the way the press, the international press, deal with the Vietnam War. Images of victims, and this is all we know about Iraq. But that country had an amazing history. And the Sumerian culture that in northern Iraq was an amazing culture. That was one of the earliest civilization that we know. But today we don't know anything about it. And I think that's why I want to make work that sort of present them and including this rich history up there. And so that's how the Sumerians series kind of started. My love for black and white is have a sense of timelessness. It could be taken any time, from the present to all the way to the beginning of photography. If you look at what's happening with photography today, and when I started, it have changed so much. It go from its beginning, it's the idea of capture something intangible, light. But today, with the digital, we're going back to kind of something intangible again. And we don't even print them anymore. We just call up the image on our screen. That's why I'm changing all the time. I'm always pushing, I'm always questioning the role of photography. The World Trade Center in 4 moments, there's 2 versions. The piece that post-Vidai collection, the structure is very traditional. It's the 4 images of the World Trade Center, but not all of it during the attack. The first one, the first image is the World Trade Center when it was in perfect condition. Then the next image is when it was during the attack. And then the next image that I use is after the cleaning and just this empty space. And then the last image is the World Trade Center one that just rebuilt. It's a traditional structure of the 4 seasons. Summer, and then the fall, and then the winter, and then the spring again. What I've done is that to distort it in a way, and you have to fill in the blank. You have to call up your memory. They look at photography and they look for the story. And then once they got the story, that's it, it's over. They don't continue to invest time into the image anymore. And so now I don't give them that satisfaction anymore. They have to work for it. I always see those work as a meditation that is forced the viewer to sit down dealing with these images, with these very traumatic images. Instead of looking at an image, consume the story, and then move on to the next thing.